Farage Beres from the Socialist and Democratic Group. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
And Nigel Farage from the also newly named group Freedom and Democracy Group. Good morning.
Hi.
Mr. Barroso was never very much engaged in economic before the crisis burst. And so it suddenly took him a bit by surprise. And obviously, until he was really put under pressure by a head of states and government to do something about the crisis, he thought his commissioner, Charlie McCreevy, could go on with his strategy that was less regulation and that there was no need for the EU to be a stronger player inside the EU, but also outside. And I think, of course, the crisis has really obliged the Commission and Mr. Barroso to change its line.
Nigel Farage, a comment on the past Commission from an economic point of view?
Yeah, it's very funny to hear this comment about, less regulation. What we've had in financial terms since, well, the last two commissions is an absolute tidal wave of regulations, directives, affecting how we run our economies. The idea that the banks have gone wrong, the idea that we've been through this terrible economic crisis because of a lack of regulation, I think is a complete misunderstanding of it. I actually think the last two commissions have over-regulated. They've made too many laws, too many rules, but none of them have actually achieved their objective. And we could point this criticism too at the Americans. I mean, they've got some things horribly wrong as well, but go to Australia, go to Canada, you won't find a single bank that's collapsed in those countries. So we've just had the wrong kind of regulation, and I think what's being discussed now for the next commission is more of the same. Yet this time we're going to double it up. This time we're going to have even more regulations on our financial markets and on how we do business without anybody ever taking a step back to say, well, hang on, perhaps we haven't got this model quite right.
So if I well understand, you are not going to support Barroso for next commission?
Well, certainly not, no.
But the risk is that you could find another candidate from a coalition of centre-left, which would be even worse than Barroso.
It would be very difficult to have anybody worse than Barroso if we just moved off economics for a moment. I mean, the man that before the Irish referendum result was announced said we have to ignore this and continue regardless with the treaty doesn't command my respect and shouldn't command the respect of Democrats anywhere in the world.
Good, we will talk about all that later on. I propose to watch together the report IFT. Nigel Farage, you will vote, your delegation is quite big now, 13 MEPs. You will vote no for everything concerning better regulation of the market.
No,
I mean, what is your opinion about that?
Better regulation. Look, the hedge funds thing sums up the problem here. The Parliament put forward this resolution, which the Commission has now responded to. Hedge funds don't extend credit. Hedge funds don't take credit. Hedge funds have absolutely nothing to do with the credit crunch whatsoever. All that a hedge fund can do is that it can increase the price at which a share goes up or increase the price at which a share goes down. But at the end of the day, with hedge funds, it's a zero-sum game. They have had nothing to do with the financial collapse in the markets whatsoever. So if you ask me, will we be supporting regulation on hedge funds when actually that's got nothing to do with the financial crisis? The answer must be no. And there is a fundamental disconnection between these institutions and the realities of financial markets.
I come back to you. Is it correct? Hedge funds are not concerned in this crisis, are not responsible?
Obviously, Mr. Farage has his own view on hedge funds and regulation, and it's not a mystery that we don't share this same approach.
How do they contribute to the credit crunch?
I think, obviously, we all agree that the crisis started in the banking sector. But any analyst that knows a bit about how it works can tell you that the reason why the bank was stuck in such a situation is because of the function of the whole financial market.
How to go out from this crisis if it's not with a better or more regulation?
Well, I think the recipe that we've heard here, of course, will affect Britain more than any other country. After all, 80% of hedge funds in the European time zone, 80% of hedge funds in the European time zone aren't just in London, they're in SW1 around St James's Square. So this regulation will close every single one of those down, and many people in the EU will be happy with that. They'd love to see Britain's biggest industry disappear and be destroyed.
But the fact that the G20 was in London perhaps is it's a proof that the problem also comes from the city.
Gordon Brown at the moment is deluding himself that somehow the 3 new regulatory authorities that the European Union is setting up somehow won't have supremacy over Britain. At least that's what he's been telling us. The reality of this financial market regulation is that it's Britain that will suffer from it. I want good regulation in financial markets, proper regulation in financial markets. I have absolutely zero confidence that there is the knowledge or understanding in Commission or European Parliament to make the right laws. And I think if you do proceed with this mad plan, well, in a way I should be happy, because it'll bring the day that Britain leaves the European Union even closer.
Yeah, but I think there's something you're really not answering to the citizen. Because obviously after this crisis, there has been places suffering more than others, and some places where you can see that the crisis was originated. And in these places, for somehow and some time, obviously the principle was that you should be confident in self-regulation, code of conduct, and so on. And these are the places where the crisis has exploded.
No, we have had, since the Financial Services Action Plan in 1999, we have had 42 separate European Union directives put upon Britain's banking and broking sector. We have had masses of regulation, but it's not been the right regulation. That's my point.
Can I ask you again the question? If it's not with more regulation, either at national level, either at communitarian, European level, how to go out with this crisis? With the auto-regulation, how? In which way?
Well, I would like to see good regulation, not bad regulation. I would certainly...
So no rules?
I would get rid of a massive regulation that is inappropriate and is not actually working. None of it has. I think we've got to redefine what a bank is. And perhaps something along the American idea of a Glass-Steagall Act, where investment banks and retail banks are separated. Perhaps that might be a good, sensible regulation to discuss, but just to close down the hedge funds, just to push all this business off, and it'll go to Bermuda, it'll go to Zurich.
Nobody said that to close the hedge funds.
They're going already. They're going already. They're going to Bermuda, they're queuing up to get into Zurich, it's happening already.
This is why we really need to tackle the issue of offshore centre.
Oh, I see, so you really would just put them out of business completely. That's your recipe, is it?
But I mean, I'm not
Can we make a step forward and also talk, from your point of view, on next steps from the Commission? Then we will also, tackle what the Commission should propose.
Yeah. Well, obviously now the big subject is going to be about the building up of a system of EU supervision, because the whole strategy by the Commission up to now was very much focused on investor protection, which is very much in the spirit of the internal market approach in the Commission. But I think it missed the point about systemic risk and financial stability. And obviously, one of the lessons out of this crisis is that you also need to tackle these aspects. This means many dossiers to be opened up.
I have a question for both of you, in fact, and concerns these transnational movements of capitals. If we take a concrete example, for example, a French subsidiary who is going to bankrupt in Slovakia, for example. The question is, who has to help this bank? France, Slovakia, both? And who has to monitoring on this bank end of life, let's say like that, Nigel Farage?
Well, of course, the answer you will always get from inside these four walls is that the European Union must be in control of all these things. The reality, of course,
is... But you're a member of this House, huh?
Well, sadly, yes. But sad for everybody. Sad for everybody.
So why were you candidate last time?
Because somebody needs to give a voice of opposition here, you know.
Okay.
No, the reality, of course, of all these things is that you need to have some sort of global cooperative system to deal with the kind of crisis that you've talked about. And I want cooperation, and I want it at European level, and I want it at global level, but cooperation is different to assimilation.
You could start from a European level and then
I
achieve the
would be happy with cooperation. That's what I want.
He wants good discussion around a glass of wine and it's finished.
Well, hopefully, yes, a good glass of wine would be lovely. But my worry is that what we're doing here is we're setting up 3 new massive bureaucracies, staffed with bureaucrats who will be busy ticking boxes, who won't understand the markets they're regulating, and I don't think it will achieve its goals.
Are we going towards... Sorry, could you mention 1 or 2 priorities, proposals that the new Commission should propose? Nigel Farage?
What we need from the Commission is a recognition that the Lisbon strategy never had any chance of working way before this financial crisis.
Because it was too much in the hand of the member states.
As much chance of working as a child's wish list to Father Christmas. The recognition I'd like to see from the Commission is that what we now have in Europe is a totally over-regulated, over-bureaucratised system. Competitively, we're losing out to the Far East and many other parts of the world, and that will go on happening. And above all, what I'd like to see the European Commission do is to recognise that actually, given those 3 referendum results, they don't even have the legitimacy to exist.
That's all for today. Thank you very much. Ed è tutto per questa settimana su Action. Arrivederci.